darkness, stare down deceit. Murder in the headlines, justice in the beat. From cold case whispers to killers in disguise, we rip off the mask, expose all the lies. Facts like bullets we load and deliver. Truth cuts deep like a blade in a river. Corruption shakes when the mic goes live. We dig where others won't survive. Keeps rolling through the smoke. Truth hits hard, no time for a joke.
This is 12 Gauge Investigative. Let's jump in.
Locked on the case, we investigate. Cold files heat up when we penetrate. The only source you'll ever need. 12 Gauge Investigate. We make them bleed. No games, no censors, just truth. Justice is loud, and we're the sound. This is 12 Gauge Investigative. Pull the trigger on the lies. No censors, just truth. Justice is loud, and we're the sound. This is 12 Gauge Investigative. Pull the trigger on the lies.
Let me see. And here we go. Let's listen what old 12 Gauge has to say. Yeah,
Good evening.
I thought
I'd like to welcome everybody to my channel. This is 12 Gauge. First of all, I'd like to state that everything that is talked about here, discussed here, is my own opinion.
Let me fast forward it.
I'd like to discuss the traits of a serial killer.
She had a slower laptop at that point, so please forget the lagging part of it.
Hope the sound in the background doesn't irritate people.
It's already irritating me, 12 Gauge.
An expert revealed the 12 key traits common in serial killers, and some of them might surprise you. This is Business Insider. Smooth talking, but insecure. Looky, Mr. Bundy. Ted Bundy was a charmer, the kind of guy that made it easy for people to be swept into his web. I liked him immediately, but people like Ted can fool you completely. Diane Rule, author of the best-selling Stranger Beside Me, but her experiences with Bundy, a man she considered a friend. I'd been a cop, had all the psychology, but his mask was perfect. I say that long acquaintance can help you know someone, but you can never really be sure. Scary. Look at the last part of that where she said, knowing somebody can be scary. Thinking you know somebody and then you find out that they're a serial killer.
Thank you, 12 Gauge, for turning that annoying music off. It was driving me crazy. He's talking about Ted Bundy right now, and or I'm talking about Ted Bundy. I don't want to talk about myself that way. Like he said, Ted Bundy was a character, a charmer. He made it easy for people to be swept into his web. This person said, I liked him immediately, but people like Ted can fool you completely. And Rules Arthur, the best stranger beside me. Bundy, a man she considered a friend. I'd been a cop, had all the psychology, but the mask was perfect. I say the long acquaintance can help you know someone, but you can never really know. It's scary. And that's true. Whenever you think that you know somebody, um, and yeah, Amber, I will check it out. I have watched some of them, but if you've listened to my videos at all, you kind of see the view that I'm going towards, and I don't really lean toward trying to figure it out or try to put all the pieces in guilt or innocence. I mainly just present the analytical portion, the scientific portion of it all, and let you make up your own mind, because everyone in the chat, believe it or not, they're really smart and they have a lot of talent and they have the ability to see things that sometimes the creator is unable to see or to hear. You guys should give yourself more credit because you're the reason we're here. It's not vice versa. And, you guys have a lot more insight than you realize. So try to always remember that you're the important person, not the person presenting the material. That's the way I look at it. Let's see what I continue to say.
Imagine how that would play in your head when you found this out. Okay. Egocentric and grandiose. Grandiose basically means that to go over the top on just about anything and everything. Everything is a dramatic presentation. Egocentric is all about themselves. Jack the Ripper thought the world of himself and felt he would outsmart the police so much that he sent letters taunting the London officers. Dear boss, he wrote, I keep on hearing the police have caught me, but they won't fix me just yet. I have laughed when they look so clever and talk about being on the right track. That joke about leather apron gave me real fits. I am down on horrors, and I shan't quit ripping them till I get buckled. Grand work the last job was. I gave the lady no time to squeal. How can they catch me now? I love my work and want to start again. You will soon hear of me with my funny little games. I saved some of the proper red stuff in a ginger beer bottle over the last job to write with it, but it went thick like glue and I can't use it. Red ink is fit enough, I hope. Ha ha. The next job I do shall clip the lady's ears off and send to the police officers. My knife's so nice and sharp. I want to get to work right away if I get a chance. Good luck. Jack the Ripper. Lack of remorse or guilt. Look at that guy. Does that look like a remorseful guy? Sure does not. And since we're talking about serial killers, I know Brian's not a serial killer in the IDAHO4. I know that. Well, look at these traits that these individuals possess that he himself could possess. Had he not been caught, or the perpetrator who did this, if they're still free, do they possess these traits? Joel Rifkin was filled with self-pity when he was convicted of killing and dismembering at least 9 women. He called his conviction a tragedy. But later in prison, he got into an argument with mass murderer Colin Ferguson over whose killing spree was more important. And when Ferguson taunted him for only killing women, Rifkin said, yeah, but I had more victims. Lack of empathy. And this is why I wanted to bring this to your attention. Early on, I heard that Mr. Koberger was stated as saying he lacked empathy towards people. Whatever he meant by that in his paper that he wrote when he was young, really don't understand the context of that, but he did write it.
Okay. Amber, you're talking about Elliot Rodger. I did a stream on him last night if you want to check that out. It's very, very insightful. Joseph, you say you can't really get how someone has no guilt or remorse. That is hard to understand. You're right. I mean, how can somebody do this without any kind of feeling of consciousness? Well, you would have to imagine somebody that is living in a world of psychosis most of the time. Their reality is not our reality. And just like with the just like with the area where people say um it's just an excuse, it's just a lack of understanding on their part, because when somebody's living in their mind, like I just said, in a life of psychosis, they're living a reality that is based on their understanding, not the world's. So whenever a killer is plotting and planning and this and that and the other, try to remember that it's not your reality that they're seeing. I mean, you can ask you can ask yourself, well, this is logical. He did this, he did that, but the truth of the matter is logic has no reasoning in a mind of a killer. And even though I do talk about Mr. Koberger a lot in this initial video, I was starting out, and at this point, I guess I was leaning toward more that these things did fit him. None of that has changed. I have just reconstructed my wording to mean it's about the message, not the person. It says, I've always said when I get old, I'd rather my mind go versus my body. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. BTK spoke on this. You're right. So let's go ahead and talk, or let's go ahead and hear some more about it. So, lack of empathy means that you have no moral compass when it comes to human beings, when it comes to little kids, when it comes to animals, when it comes to any of that. It means that your empathy, you could watch somebody fall down, hurt themselves viciously, and then ask them, well, what made you do that? You knew you were going to hurt yourself. Instead of focusing on the fact that they're in pain, that they could have broken something, that you should help them. There is no empathy, so you're not going to help them. You're going to focus on their flaws, and it comes across very narcissistic and very, very abnormal, not pro-social. It comes across as maladaptive and antisocial. So let's listen to what old 12 Gauge has to say.
Andrel Chikatilo, who feasted on bits of genitalia, both male and female, after his kills, thought nothing to taking a life, no matter how torturous it was for his victims. The whole thing, the cries, the blood, the agony, gave me relaxation and a certain pleasure, he said. Deceitful and manipulative. Look, 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 look. It's Pogo the Clown. John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy refused to take responsibility for the 28 boys buried beneath his house, even though he also once said the clowns can get away with murder. I think after 14 years under truth serum, had I committed the crime, I would have known it, said the man the neighbors all claimed to like. There's got to be something that would click in my mind. I've had photos of 21 of the victims, and I've looked at them over the years, here and there, and I've never recognized any of them. Shallow emotions. German serial killer Rudolf Fleal, convicted of killing 10 people, later took his own life in prison, compared his hobby or murder to playing cards, and later told police What I did is not such a great harm. With all these surplus women nowadays, anyway, I had a good time. Look how nonchalant they are. They're just like killing is not really that big of a deal. Look at that guy's face, laughing it up. Impulsive. Tommy Lynn Sells, who claimed responsibility for dozens of murders throughout the Midwest and South, saw a woman at a convenience store and followed her home. An impulse he was unable to control. He waited until the house went dark. Then I went into this house. I go into the first bedroom. I see, I don't know whose room it is, and I start stabbing. The victim was the woman's young son.
Did you hear that? He waited until the lights went dark. Then he went into the first room he saw, and he started stabbing and stabbing without any kind of remorse. His urge was more than he could handle. That sounds like a trait that happened in this crime. Whether he went into the first room, he or she went into the first room and just started stabbing. You know, in the very beginning, we were told that this was a targeted attack. How did they know that? You have to ask yourself, what are some of the things they were telling you in the very beginning that you really didn't understand, and you took it to mean something one way or the other, so it caused you to form a side. So we were told it was a targeted attack. So this individual, whoever it might be, walked into this home and targeted 4 people. That means he went in there, he or she went in there with the intent to calm that urge, whatever it was, of impulsiveness. At this point that night, everything added up. And he took care of what was haunting him or her. You know, to watch a house and then wait till the lights go out and know that either they're asleep or at least you're not going to be seen in the dark. You know, in the very beginning also, they spoke of night vision goggles. I don't know how true that is. I don't know if it was a speculation or a rumor, but I remember reading about that. That would make sense. I mean, if you took night vision goggles, you could see, they couldn't see you. You know, it's a very disturbing concept, because nighttime's supposed to be a safe time for people. Whether you're intoxicated, whether you're sober, it's supposed to be safe. And to wake up with your safety net all of a sudden cut and you're having to fight for your life, I mean that is a concept I wouldn't wish on anybody. Because you're not at your finest first thing after waking up. And I think the killer probably knew that. You're not going to be alert. Even if you just went to sleep, you're not going to immediately wake up out of a sound sleep and be at your best. So you're going to try to figure out what's going on, what's happening. What do I need to do? Because your brain is seeing it. Your brain and your eyeballs are communicating, but your muscles are not awake yet because of the sleep paralysis. So that's another concept that I believe people fail to understand as well. When you're asleep and you wake up, you're not 100%. And there's a lot of individuals that say, well, were they bludgeoned? Was there a stun gun used? Was there this? Was there that? Maybe none of that was used. Maybe the fact that they were coming out of that sleep paralysis made it enough time for him to do what the killer meant to do. And I'm saying killer, because I'm not certain that the individual in jail right now is the killer or is not the killer. At this point, he has been arrested, indicted for these murders. It's not up to me to decide whether he did it or not. Exactly, Heather. I agree with you. So sleeping is allowing yourself to be completely vulnerable and allow yourself to relax. So you're not instantly going to just jump out of your sleep and ready to fight. It doesn't happen that way most of the time. Let's listen about this guy.
So, Mr. Koberger supposedly waded into the house one dark. He went into the house. He didn't stop at the first room he saw because that would have been Dylan's. But supposedly, according to reports from family members, the two on the second floor were handled first because he didn't have to go upstairs. And then he went upstairs to the two girls and did what he did. Poor behavior controls. You know, another thing Mr. Koberger possessed is he had poor behavior controls according to his students and his professors and the people who he was acquaintances with while at WSU. This individual says, I wished I could stop, but I could not. I had no other thrill or happiness, said UK killer Dennis Nilsson, who killed at least 12 young men via strangulation, then bathed and dressed their bodies before disposing of them, often by burning them. So think of an individual not having much of a life, not having much of happiness, needing excitement, and the only way that they can get that filled is to kill or hunt another individual. For Albert Fish, a masochistic killer with a side of sadism that included sending a letter to the mother of one of his victims describing in detail how he cut, cooked, and ate her daughter. Even the idea of his own death was one he found particularly thrilling. Going to the electric chair will be the supreme thrill of my life, he said.
You're right, Heather. You're very right. I mean, like I stated early on, this was an earlier video. This is one of those videos that that I did early on when I didn't really think before I spoke. I was just excited to get the information out there. I was just excited to kind of I was trying to do the analytical thing, but I just wasn't thinking before I spoke. I was sounding more like I was one-sided, which, at that point I probably was. And you're right, Joseph, we really don't know the facts, like whether wounds were different that came from Steve, for example. Even the coroner did not know. You're right. So if you're thinking about the wounds, aren't they going to be different though the later on you get into the killings? Because you're not going to be as your stamina is going to be, at a particular point. Your adrenaline dump has happened. So you're not going to be as vicious as you were when you started because the mental clock was going off in your head for whatever reason. Then you were focused. Toward the end, I'm sure this individual, whoever it was probably gaining the access of not believing that they just killed 4 people. The other 2 people that they left alive, I'm sure it wasn't even a thought. It wasn't even a thought. You know? Um I'm glad you are enjoying this, guys. I really am. I mean, I I woke up and I couldn't sleep any longer because I went to bed earlier, so I decided to get back and do what I like to do, to present things. Let's continue to listen.
Lack of responsibility. This is Mr. Gacy again. I see myself more as a victim rather than a perpetrator, said John Gacy. In a rare moment of admitting the murders, I was cheated out of my childhood. I should never have been convicted of anything more serious than running a cemetery without a license. They were just a bunch of worthless little queers and punks. Early behavior problems. When I was a boy, I never had a friend in the world, said German serial killer Heinrich Pommerenke, who began raping and murdering girls as a teen. Adult antisocial behavior. Look at Mr. Greenway. Gary, did I say Greenway? I meant Ridgway. Gary Ridgway pleaded guilty to killing 48 women, mostly prostitutes, who were easy prey and were rarely reported missing, at least not immediately. I don't believe in man, God, nor devil. I hate the whole damn human race, including myself. I preyed upon the weak, the harmless, and the unsuspecting. This lesson was taught by others. Might makes right. But think about what he just said. He didn't care. He didn't believe in man, God, nor the devil. So he became one. Let's look at this next article on Fox. It says Idaho murder investigators can identify the knife without it being found, forensic expert state. Mr. Morgan, the forensic expert, he said the knife used in the Idaho student murders may have left behind evidence that investigators could use to tie it back to the killer, even if the blade is never found. We know what happened. The 4 Idaho students were killed in the middle of the night by supposedly graduate student Brian Koberger. An empty tan leather sheath was found next to the bodies of 2 of the slain students, and police say the murder weapon is a fixed blade knife. While the knife itself is still missing, forensic expert Morgan described on Dr. Phil Thursday how the weapon could still be identified and linked to the killer. It's not necessarily that we had a knife at this point, because the knife actually would leave behind more evidence. Morgan explained. There's the K-bar. Fixed blade knife, meaning that the blade stays in one position. He said the full body x-ray done during the autopsy may reveal a metal chip from the knife that can be then analyzed. So during the autopsies, they took x-rays and they could see exactly what kind of knife it was if they left any metal chips.
Did you hear that little portion right there? And that's never really been discussed in any creator that I've listened to. They've never discussed the fact that you can x-ray and you can take and you can see the metal fragments that's left behind, that you can actually tell what type of knife was used based on that scientific data. And I have moved to another state all by myself, Heather, and it's quite intimidating. You don't really know anybody, but it's kind of like moving to another town. You know, you want a fresh start. Nobody knows you, and you're able to be who you are. I don't understand in this case how he didn't reinvent himself to be a different person, but just continue down the same path he was going as far as his antisocial antics. Doesn't make him a killer, but exactly makes him an antisocial individual. So let's talk about that x-ray stuff that I just talked about, okay? They're able to do x-rays to determine whether there's any kind of metal fragments and to be able to identify what type of knife was used. This is a good statement right here. I think Brian purposely made mistakes. He knew this would cause confusion about evidence, and so doubt would prevail. The data re-knife is fascinating. Good comment, Joseph. He opened his phone like 23rd of June, 22. It's 20 weeks between that and the crime. Yeah, that's interesting information there. But what do y'all think about the X-ray? The ability for an X-ray, or even to be able to identify a knife through X-ray of the fragment that were left behind? Because just because you can't see it doesn't mean that whatever it struck on the internal parts of the body, it didn't leave shards of metal that could be seen under an X-ray. It's it's interesting that we hear of the individual that's accused of this crime, and there are a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions. You know, how could he have done this? How could he have done that? What was he thinking during this, during that? What I'm curious to know, and I hope this comes out because I'm very curious, is what were the last 48 hours of his life like before the crime was committed? What was his pattern of living? You know, was he one of those rigid individuals that, like Mr. Rogers, he would get home, what the first thing he would do? He would slip out of his work sweater or work coat and work shoes and put on some comfortable shoes and his comfortable sweater, and put his shoes up, put his coat up, and then begin talking to the camera. And there are a lot of people that are creatures of habit. We all are as human beings. We're creatures of habit. So to think that an individual's pattern cannot be identified, it's easier than we believe. I mean, how many of you take the same ride to work that you take home? And what happened to you if the ride that you normally take, if there's construction or there's a detour? What's the first thing you do? You get angry, right? Because you say, okay, now that's going to cut down on such and such amount of time that I have to take and get to work. Or if there's a traffic jam, or you have a flat tire, or your battery goes out, or whatever it might be, you know. Um, so it has a lot to do with human behavior. We are very disciplined, ritualistic individuals, most of us. And they make it sound like this crime was created by someone who would just not any of that. They call it sloppy, they call it opportunistic. Someone that just rode around looking for the right moment to commit this crime and then left the knife sheath, hauled ass out of the neighborhood, and there we go. Okay, exactly. And that's what I'm saying right now as far as the x-rays. You're going to be able to see, as morbid as it sounds, you're going to be able to see exactly what kind of fragments were left behind. I know you would believe that that would be enough for somebody to say, well, maybe tonight's not the night, you know? Maybe tonight's not a good night. X-ray emit particular molecular patterns from every element that allow determination of material within the knife. Not every knife gives off these patterns, so a knife maker can be determined. Very good. Very good insight. Thank you for being here, Joseph. You're very knowledgeable. I think I've seen you in chat before, as well as Heather and Nina and, the rest of you that I've named. Thank you for being up this late with me, presenting this, and talking about it.
So this knife allegedly has been used repeatedly four times. Just think about that. The structural integrity of this thing begins to wear down. It'll chip. Sometimes points break off. I've seen this any number of times at an autopsy. If that is the case, they may very well have recovered a metal fragment from the blade of that knife within the body. He then explained how metallurgical analysis can be used to trace the knife back to a specific manufacturer, which could help investigators figure out where the knife was sold and who purchased it. Just because the sheath was found there doesn't mean that that's the knife that was carried. So you look for a specific forensic tieback relative to the chemical structure of the blade as well. That might be a potential here in this case. So just because that knife sheath was there doesn't mean that that's the knife that was in that sheath. But
that's a good point, 12 gauge, because we have never been told that a K-bar knife was used. We've never been told that. Heather says she sleeps once a year. Awesome, Joseph. Awesome. So how many of you believe that it could have been a different knife used? Because we've heard different variations of stories from different people. The knife wound didn't match. There were different knife wounds with different people. So think about that a minute. How many of y'all believe, based on your own research, not what somebody has told you, that there could have been a different knife used? Maybe the knife sheath wasn't even a K-bar knife. Maybe it was something else. I don't know why somebody would bring a K-bar knife sheath and plant it, but put it down. But this whole case doesn't make sense sometimes. So what do y'all think? I've always said that we don't even know if that was the weapon. That's true. We've never been told that. We've never been told this is the weapon that was used. They've always said a sharp, fixated, serrated knife. So, if it's not the weapon, K-bar that's paired to the sheath, so does the pair, does the DNA matter? I would say that if it's not the knife, it wouldn't. I mean, that's a great point. Just because your DNA is on a sheath, but that's not the knife that was used, how are they going to put you there? Explain that a little bit, Nina. You said, I think the K-bar was under Maddie's pillow. So you believe the K-bar was her knife? If one planned ahead, how can rage be induced upon action? In other words, can rage be summoned upon beginning of a fact? I spoke on that earlier, cause and effect. If I get this correctly on what you're trying to say, it's how can one precurse the other? Like they say it was a crime of passion, a rageful crime. What would make one so angry? What would make one so angry? And I was speaking earlier as well because I did a live earlier, but it was a different one. It was on profiling a killer. Um, so many speculate that it was jealousy. Somehow or another, he was fixated on one of the girls. They turned him down. I've known a lot of men that have been rejected, and even some with some severe mental anger problems, and not one. And I mean, I'm just saying, not one has gone and killed them in the middle of the night. What do y'all think about that? I mean, it takes a lot of rage to get to that point. Did he go out with one of them and then they start, not Koberger, I'm saying whoever did this, because we're not certain he did this, okay? Innocent till proven guilty. So think about this. Did whoever did this engage with one of the people? Could he have been tutoring? Could he have been even befriended one of them at the Mad Greek? Or maybe both of them. And then they turned on him. Maybe instead of being nice, they started making fun of him. They started doing the same thing that other people did throughout his lifetime. And this escalated. And he wanted revenge, whoever it was. Could there have been a rejection factor? Could there have been an infatuation that the others didn't know about? Ethan, I believe, was just there at the wrong place at the wrong time. I don't believe that he was a target other than the fact that he was a male and he was there and he had to be taken out. Let's continue to hear what good old 12 gauge has to say.
We're going to be able to tie back relative of the chemical structure of the blade as well. So if any of those chips in that blade were found, they're going to be able to tell it. Well, let's talk about knife targets. Okay? The mere physicality of an edged weapon encounter is dramatically different than that of a firefight. You will be up close, probably face to face with the bad guy. You will smell their breath, feel their sweat, see their face, and hear the groan when you hear the knife is twisted out of the body. Look at how close that guy is. Using one arm to subdue him.
Understand that for whatever reason, I blinked out. I think I didn't know how to do the sharing screen, so I think I was looking at it thinking that once you start sharing, you just switch the tabs and it's going to share the tab you're looking at. So I was looking at the tab, but it was stuck on this sharing screen. So if you're wondering what's going on, that was probably what it was. So just bear with 12 gauge here. He was kind of naive in the process. This is a very early on video, but it has a lot of great information and didn't get a lot of views. As you can tell, I'm about to like it myself, so it only got 4 likes. So if you could kind of give me some likes on this, if you enjoy what I'm presenting, please do so.
The mere physicality of an edged weapon encounter is dramatically different than that of a firefight. You will be up close, probably face to face. Like I just said, you'll smell his breath, you'll feel his sweat, see his face, and hear the groan when the knife is twisted out of the body. Putting a blade into someone's throat, twisting it, and then tugging it out is not a pretty sight. Sorry for the graphic there. Slashing attacks, while devastating in appearance, are usually superficial in nature and are not usually life-threatening. Stabbing attacks, on the other hand, do not look good on the surface. But the internal bleeding and damage can be extensive. Keep in mind that heavy clothing may provide protection from both slashing and thrusting attacks. So, were the individuals that night wearing clothes that protected them from slashing and thrusting attacks? You have to ask yourself, were they wearing pajamas? Were they still in their party clothes? I mean, if you looked at the clothes that they were wearing while they were out at the grub truck, Kaylee and Maddie had on a little pink shirt and some jeans and some boots and a coat. Kaylee had on a sweatshirt and some jeans and some white shoes. So I don't believe that any of that clothing would have been sufficient enough to stop a stabbing.
Man, Joel,
When using a thrusting attack, the blade should be twisted when withdrawing it for two reasons.
you're
To
spitting
break the
facts,
naturally
bro.
occurring suction and make a larger wound channel. See, there's stuff like this that anybody can research and anybody can read and anybody can get the knowledge of what happens once you do these things. I'm not going to read the rest because it's pretty graphic, but you can read it if you want. Remember, the bad guy may not know he had been stabbed or cut. Most individuals who are attacked with an edged weapon say they thought they were being punched and had no idea that they were stabbed. That's terrible. That's terrible. Keep in mind that the body is a hydraulic system with 12 pints of blood, and it may take 15 to 30% blood loss, 2 or 4 pints, to affect change in the vital signs. Most of the areas will be familiar from your first aid and CPR classes, in which you learn the pressure points to stop bleeding. I don't want to go into this next part because I already did it in another video. So if you want to learn,
Boy, that man is spitting some facts, huh? Who is this masked guy? Anyways, you are talking about where he met. Could he have ran into one of the victims? If we're talking Coburger, didn't Kaylee frequent a bar over there in Pullman called the Coug or something like that? Or did she just go one time? I mean, as we've noticed about the suspect, is he enjoyed going to places like that based on what we've been told. Um, I remember hearing that he used to go to a bar in Pullman, not really remembering which one, but I remember he used to frequent a bar in Pullman. And also he did that in Pennsylvania. I mean, it just a thing to do, you're going out for the night. But think about Ted Bundy when he used to go out to the bar he went to, I think it was called Dante's. He would he would have his own personal chair in which he would sit there and survey the bar and pick out the brunette he was gonna take home and do whatever. Um, so very methodical, very. It's kind of like, I mean, he also said in a quote, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. You have all the people that you potentially want to pick from. They're all right here. I'm going to be right here. They're all right here. I'm going to be fixated on one and I'm going to take them out. But the same thing happens. Let's flip the other side, okay? Let's say he was at a bar in Pullman. Let's say he did run across Kaylee or Maddie or Xana. If you're going to if you're going to hurt somebody, why wait? All these other serial killers didn't wait. They gave into that urge. They did it that night. They did it within hours of meeting the person. They didn't wait months and then all of a sudden say, "Oh, tonight's the night. I'm going to go take everybody out in that house." That doesn't make sense based on the MO of most murderers. It doesn't make sense whatsoever. What do y'all think about that? This individual, whoever did this crime, had ample opportunity at many points in these four students' lives, at least three of them, in these three students' lives to take them out if that's who they were stalking or preying upon. They had ample time to do it. Understand that. Understand that. We're not talking about him. We're talking about anybody in general. Okay? If it wasn't him, whoever it was had ample opportunity to take these people out. They didn't have to wait until November 13th, 2022. They could have taken them out on their walk to the grub truck. If that was a weekly thing for these two girls, the one guy was with them for a reason. Protection, right? Why was he around? They acted like they didn't want him around. Like he was a burden, you know? What this dude walking with us for? Why is he around? Well, we're going to keep him around in case anything happens. So think about that a little bit. If you're going to take somebody out, why are you going to wait? Why are you going to wait? This could have been anybody on either campus. Anybody. Somebody mentioned, how come he didn't do this to somebody at WSU? I think it makes a lot of sense, but it's really close to proximity. I believe that if this individual is the one, the anonymity of it all was what he was hoping for. So let's continue to hear what this individual about where to stab and the things that will happen if you stab in this area, if you stab in that area. You can go to my channel and you can see my last video. So that was pretty informative, I thought. I thought it was very informative where it spoke on, you know, how they'll be able to potentially, if not already, have done an autopsy where they could find fragments of a knife and the pieces that could have been left behind. I've never even heard of that, and I thought that was very informative. You know,
There's been a lot of speculation this week about the trial coming up and the preparation that it's going to take for the trial to be completed and things of that nature. But do you really feel that in your heart, after this long, amidst all the conspiracy, amidst all the coulda, woulda, shouldas, if you're just looking at the evidence that was given to you, do you feel that you understand who the potential perpetrator is or isn't? Because, when we get into that, there's no way you could have done this, there's no way you could have done that. Once again, if you look at my last video where I was discussing how quickly somebody can be incapacitated, it says between 5 and 15 seconds. And they won't even be able to fight back. Cut them right here, cut them right here, cut them right here. It enables them incapable to fight back. Today I heard the possibility of the two roommates being involved once again, the surviving roommates. Could either one of them been strong enough to overcome a 6'4" guy, a fiery brunette, a tenacious blonde, and a very outspoken, fiery friend of hers? If so, then that might be your theory. But if you're looking at logic, you have to ask yourself, how could that happen? How trained killers are taught over months and years how to incapacitate somebody. And still, at the moment of truth, you have to clear your mind where it's just you, the opportunity, and your reward. Because if it isn't that way, and it's emotional, like most people, when they talk about this, their emotions are involved. And I understand that. I understand why they're involved. I understand why they have such a emotional connection to this. But you have to ask yourself this. If you take all the emotions away and you take out that you didn't know who Brian Koberger was, is, and they just gave you the information, they didn't give you a name, would you still believe it was him? Take out the white Elantra BS. The first situation about, 2013, then went to 2015, 16, take out all that, all the confusion, the pieces that you don't know about, which is the gag order. Use your intellectual mind rather than your emotional attachment. And then ask yourself, is it viable that this happens? Is it viable that an individual set up revenge to be able to go take down these 4 people? Or did he only intend on one and got overzealous and went and did as many as he could? Was it revenge? Was it greed? Was it money? Because most people say it was a crime of passion. A crime of passion where somebody's feelings were hurt. Supposedly, the guy that did it is 28 years old and a graduate student, and looks like his emotional attachment to life is very limited, if at all. He had that look like he didn't attach to anything very much, especially being rejected by a female. He looked like he would just shrug it off and be like, you know what? No big deal. So look at that avenue. Does he look like somebody that would be jealous of two females that were living the party life that he wished that he could have lived? Does he really look like an individual that cared about the party life? To me, he doesn't. He looks like a very stoic, very proper.
Let's talk about that a minute. You know, that is one of the theories that is brought upon this individual who was jealous because during his youth he missed out on that. He wasn't um you know, he wasn't partying, he was not able to get the girls, this and that and the other. Well, how do we know? I mean, how do we know he missed out on all that? You know, how do we know that was such a a moment in time that would cause him or whoever to create such a crime? You know, like I said, this video is very early on, so I was not really thinking what was coming out of my mouth before it came out. As I'm watching it now, and God, why did I say that? I was really nervous presenting this because I wasn't really sure how it'd be perceived. You know, but you have to understand the psyche, and most of you do, when it comes to people placing the little piece of the puzzle that says this is the motive. But what was the intent? You can't have one without the other. What was the intent and what was the motive? Based on what we know now, we still don't know either answer to those questions, because motive and intent is the catalyst that propels everything else. And we've never been told either. We've never been told about the knife. We've never been told about any of the real facts that would lead an individual to commit this crime that would make sense in our minds. I mean, to a lot of people, some of the things that we've been told does make sense to them. But if you stop and analyze your thoughts, and then analyze those thoughts, and analyze those thoughts, you're going to see, as individuals have stated, there's lack of evidence. Well, lack of evidence means that you don't understand the evidence or you don't know the missing pieces because of the stupid gag order. I appreciate that, Joseph. I appreciate that. You know, what I'm saying is this, is when it comes to being analytical and you're looking outside the box, like I said earlier, there has to be more to your intellect and your perception of the problem to get to the final solution. There's a lot of things that you must go through, you know? And hopefully one day we'll find out all those answers. Let's finish this video up.
Able to disguise themselves for the moment. But you know, people have more than one side to them. And I'm sure we really don't know who Mr. Koberger is. Just like we really don't know who the murdered 4 students were. You know, of course, we want to think all of them were angels and they didn't do anything wrong and they were sweet and everything like that. I hope people talk about me when I'm gone like that. But the real people will remember all the hurt and pain that I caused them. And I, in no way, am saying that they were hurtful and harmful people. Okay, I'm not saying that at all. So don't get on your high horse and think, well, 12 gauge is saying that those people were just, you know, hurtful and they hurt people and they deserve what they got. No, that's not what I'm saying. But you really don't know these people. I don't know them. So we can only assume by the pictures, by the friends talking, by this,
I
that,
saw
and the
that
other,
bullets.
who they were. So in reality, we don't know the victim. We don't know the perpetrator. We don't know the house. Because in reality, nobody was there filming this reality show. We all want a piece of it. Heck, I'm spending 30 minutes tonight doing it because it's intriguing. It keeps your mind going. It's like a puzzle that nobody can solve and won't be able to. Even if they solve it, they still won't be believed that they solved it until the jury addresses whether this is the man and if he's guilty of the 4. So don't stress yourself out over this because the emotional attachment, if you have that, you need to look at what reenactment in your life is being triggered by this attachment to this case. Did you have somebody in your family murdered and then never caught them, left you with unanswered questions? Did you have domestic issues? Did you have drug issues? Did you have crime issues? Were you a criminal? Were you this, that, and the other? So therefore you can understand it or you can state that you feel this and that and the other. Because in the end, we all do not know. You know, I was wild at that age too. That doesn't mean I could understand what a 19, 20, 21-year-old does today because the time isn't the same. A lot of people say, well, did you even go to college? To some of these people, and of course they did, but it wasn't the same. The drugs weren't the same, the parties weren't the same, the hazing, all that was not the same. So to sit there and say that you understand it because you once went to college and you may have been a frat and this and that and the other, unless it was last year, you really don't get it. Because things change really quickly. So I want to leave you with this, okay? Because I got to make some phone calls. It's funny how people don't mess with you until you're doing something like this. I want to leave you with this. Try to imagine, instead of looking at this as a crime that needs to be solved, look at it as a situation where it really makes logical sense with logical thought. Because in reality, all these Linda Lane footage, all the Taylor Avenue footage, all the Banfield footage, I ask you to stop making that like somebody was filming a movie at each of these locations, and the only thing that was being shown was evidence of a crime committed. Because a lot of that was just Saturday night in a college town. A lot of that was just kids, being loud, rowdy, dressing up, scaring people, whatever it was. But since we don't know the answer, we're going to put these players in a situation where they were in the limelight at the wrong time, at the wrong time, at the wrong time, at the wrong time. The grub truck. I've seen so many videos where they've dissected every person at the grub truck. They've talked about this person. They've talked about that person. They've dug into their family. They've dug into their family. You know what? I would have hated to be at that grub truck that night, because God knows what people would have dug up on me, my family. And it's out there forever. But in the name of justice, people do this every day, not realizing the implication that they're putting people's lives in. And you know, the First Amendment is free speech. That's the beauty of what we do on these platforms, have free speech. But after a while, free speech is no longer free. When we start harming people with our words, putting them in a light that they can't escape from, even if it's true, we have no right to put people in places where we really don't know they belong.
To the addicted and unchild. The name 12, the last, is the gauge of the blast. Hear me out, it's all about the game. The YouTube streets ain't got no shame. There are beggars, grifters, betties too. Just a lot of confusion, whatever it do. From missing kids to people being butchered in the night. Many lost in these chats without a fight. 12 gauge, listen up fast. The beat of the heart will melt your cast. It's the crown of the champ, the image of the might. Get your ass ready, because here comes the might. There are beggars, grifters, betties too. Just a lot of confusion, whatever it do. From missing kids to people being butchered in the night. Many lost in these chats without a fight. Listen to the words that run from my mic. There will be knowledge, your facts delight. You don't get it, you think I'm the brash. Listen to the ones that you just throw away your cash. 12, 12, 12, can you remember the name? It's about a sinister shadow in the dark to ruin your sleep. With the mares of the night that give you chills, come to the channel. You can get your fears brought to live without the censors making a fight. Your brain beat down from the grifters on these streets. Give the channel a try and dance to the beat of a different drum. There are beggars, grifters, betties too. Just a lot of confusion, whatever it do. From missing kids to people being butchered in the night. Many lost in these chats without a fight. MG and success is what I'm about. It's the honesty and humility without the clout. I chose to be who I am a long time ago. Addiction had me drowning hell on with the show. 12, 12, 12, 12, click, click, boom. Another round for the unconvinced, here it comes now. Well, all beggars, grifters, betties too. Just a lot of confusion, whatever it do. From missing kids to people being butchered in the night. Many lost in these chats without a fight.